everybody. Today is April 18th, and we're doing the L1 Links with Friends show with government and security links to share with your friends.
Or acquaintances. Perhaps you could build a friendship by sharing links.
Just spam it all over your friends' Facebook walls, assuming any of you still have Facebook.
Oh, you also partake of the links? Yes, as do I.
That's what every major corporation seems to think. The more they email me, the more I like them.
Yeah. Or, how many pop-ups can I put on this site before you'll agree to get on my newsletter?
Yeah, I love the newsletter pop-ups in 2023. It's like, this site has a newsletter pop-up, and it's like, tell me the marketing team is running things and no one is paying attention.
But somebody is putting that in there. If they were getting 0 results, they'd stop doing it.
No, I don't know that that's true. Because on think about the sites that we've worked on that have had that, it's just been spam, but they're like, oh, somebody filled it out 800 times. But it's like, did you look at it though?
These usernames?
The emails are terrible.
No, some people, they have to be getting some kind of return.
You do webmaster at and then the domain.
Yeah, I like to change it up because they gotta be onto that. I think the safest one is sales.
Ooh, yeah.
Almost everybody has sales, and sales is not going to be happy
about getting that. Yeah,
they're not going to understand it, and they're going to get on to the development team, and then if nothing will get fixed, but you'll ruin some people's days.
Sales,
that's worth it.
Well, whatever. Or sign up the executive team for their newsletter, and then just be like, yeah.
Head on over to LinkedIn. You really want to get involved here? We should build an AI that does just that.
Yeah, just spam it.
A browser plugin. Well, whose email inbox is probably pretty full right about now is this young man. Now, this story's been playing out all week. We'll start with the, as if we'd gotten to this before it had all wrapped up.
Justice Department will investigate leak of classified Pentagon documents.
Surprising no one. They're really just like, whatever.
They were leaked on Discord, but they found the person responsible pretty quickly.
Well, not really, because this stuff had been floating around.
Days, yeah.
But no, this stuff came out in February? I think.
Yeah, well, about a month.
But it didn't hit the mainstream until one of the big news sites picked it up, which was last week. And then, they did identify him. It didn't seem like he did this for any political or ideological reasons. Seemed like he was just trying to impress his friends, kind of like the War Thunder guys.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And they found him pretty quick.
FBI arrests 21-year-old Air Force guardsman in Pentagon leak case. And they knew what they were getting into, but they still put on this big show because they knew that there would be drones and cameras and everything else.
Look at this guy, too. I mean, he's clearly 21. He's just wearing, basketball shorts and a T-shirt, and he's just like, okay.
If I was going to go to jail, that's probably what I would wear.
Yeah.
You want to be comfortable for long periods of time. Nothing that anybody wants to steal from you when you're in there. Definitely would have some shoes that don't cost a lot of money, because I'll never buy shoes that cost a lot of money.
I don't think they let you keep any of that. I think they just put it in a locker somewhere and you get it when you get out.
But while you're in the tank, before you get processed, you're going to be that's where you're going to be exposed to the most other people.
Do you think, will they let him be around other people, or are they going to really throw a book at him?
Yeah, it'd probably be a high profile protected custody.
Yeah.
But here's my big question. Why did this guy's name was, I think based on what I've seen in the sports ball before, you pronounce that Teixeira or Texera?
I'm not sure.
Have you heard it on the news at all?
I've just read stories, but I didn't watch it on video.
I don't watch news, and I mute all my tabs, so I never hear the names. But I think it's Jack Teixeira. Here's the big question. Why does a 21-year-old Air Force guardsman have access to these documents?
I had the same question.
Somebody's got to do the work.
What level of security clearance did he have?
He was a journeyman data something.
He worked on their communications network to make sure it kept running.
But the stuff that he got to wasn't digital. It was printed. He took pictures of it. So why did he have access to that?
Oh, yeah. He was not supposed to have his phone wherever he was.
Yeah.
That sucks if you're a National Guardsman now, because your phones will be definitely restricted heavily.
Is the next story the really absurd one? Yes.
Yeah. So one of the ways that they were able to tie all of this together and figure out who leaked it is that, and this is why I don't think that this was any sort of ideological thing. This was really just sharing stuff with his bros.
Young moron. Yeah.
Leaked classified documents also include role-playing game character stats. because of course.
My favorite, I read this whole article and like the whole thing is like, well, at first we thought it was D&D and then it's like, but they don't have these stats. And then we thought it was Call of Cthulhu. And then they interviewed the person who made Call of Cthulhu and they're like,
obviously
faith and luck, like they aren't things that we have in our game. And
they nailed it down though. It was actually a homebrew fork of Call of Cthulhu. Which is, and
then the final quote in the article is from the creator of Call of Cthulhu, and they're like, "I always encourage homebrewing." It's like, oh, what a positive note to end on.
He's gonna have time for a lot of that where he's going.
Oh, you think he'll introduce that in the pod in federal prison?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that'd be a great way to pass time, huh?
Yeah.
Could get you stabbed though. Yeah. So here's the interesting thing about this though, and this is always the case with something like this, but really, really severe in this situation, is that all of the coverage of this focuses purely on who and why and not the contents of the leaks. Because the contents of the leaks are very embarrassing for the federal government. Basically, they were spying on all of their allies.
Does that surprise anyone?
We knew they were doing it.
Yeah.
But it's embarrassing when it's like right there on the table. It's like when, sometimes a couple, the love has gone out of their marriage and there's some infidelity going on, but they just don't talk about it. And then a crazy young girlfriend shows up at the house, like in The Sopranos. And it's like, you embarrassed me. It's like, of course we all knew this was happening, but you've embarrassed me.
I always mentally replay the James Clapper testimony in my head. And it's like, are you doing this? And it's like, not wittingly. was all he could come up with.
South Korea who said that theirs wasn't accurate though. Like I don't know if this was leaked on purpose
of course
or
you
like
would say that.
Yeah, that's.
It would be
amazing.
I'm
so confused.
It would be amazing if this all turned out to be some sort of counterintelligence operation.
That's what Russia said that they thought it was.
This is how you would do it.
Do you think he was in on it, or is he just a useful idiot?
I think that he would. I think that if I were going to do a counterintelligence op like this, he would be a useful idiot. He would not be in on it.
You think we'll get to see any of this trial, or will this be all locked down?
No, I think it'll be a year before we hear from him again.
There's definitely some Patriot Act stuff and all that would let them shield this from anybody's eyes for 75 years, right? Something like that. Be interesting to see how they handle that.
I don't know which theory I like better, that it was a genuine stupid screw up or it was all planned. I like both, but for different reasons.
My favorite leak from the documents was that they were spying on Zelensky because they thought that he was being too aggressive. And it's like, oh, wait, hang on there, buddy. This is a proxy board. We need to just let this simmer.
No boiling.
Don't be attacking. What are you doing? We're all getting rich
Trying
here.
to take your territory back? I don't.
That is disappointing.
And Joe Biden, it's an embarrassing week for him. He had some other things planned, and this probably would have been the top story if not for that.
Biden looks to boost EV sales with plan to cut vehicle emissions. More electric cars for everybody.
Very aggressive deadline here. They're moving to, 40% by 2030, I think.
A lot of car dealerships seem to be mobilizing on this too. They're trying to get their stuff together because they don't see themselves playing as much of a role in vehicle sales and like the current vehicle economy with newer vehicles and the move to everybody else. Like dealerships historically they're not only are they not necessary, they've enjoyed insane margins, and that is no longer going to be the case.
But you say that, but they're still doing all of the little markups. Like they're doing the nitrogen fee.
Yeah.
And that is not the behavior of someone who sees what's coming in the future, which is direct to consumer model for all cars.
Well, think about how easy it is to just an individual sole developer in a company to write an app to help you save money on buying a car, and all the app does is just do comparison shopping for a car with the places that are doing more direct sales versus the dealership. And the app could just look up cars for sale at Costco and be like, hey, here's the Costco price for a car. Can the dealership beat this? Because the answer is no.
The other beautiful thing that's happening is those big giant corporations that try to, like turn that into the corporate model, like Carvana and CarMax are getting slaughtered because they bought really, really, really expensive cars, and now the prices are starting to roll over.
Yeah. It turns out none of those were profitable anyway, even when things were operating.
Well, they were profitable during the time when like they had built their fleet and then the inflation hit and the car prices skyrocketed up. So they had low cost in the beginning, but now it's the opposite side. And of course, AI is the big thing on everybody's mind, other than the leak, of course, and getting control of it. Because I think a lot of the powers that be are starting to understand that AI can go one of two ways. It can be liberating for the common man, or it can be oppressive for the common man. Guess which one they would like?
Commerce Department looks to craft AI safety rules. I was looking at it being oppressive, but then there's comments here that just stop short of, fortunately, this guy, Isaac Asimov, thought of all this, and he gave us the laws of robotics. We're just going to put that into play. And it's like, I don't think that's what he had in mind with those, but okay.
Yeah, that's also a fiction writer. That's not something that we just can count on to work. I mean, he was a talented man, don't get me wrong.
Well, the point of his writing was literally like, it's a fool's errand to even try to do it that way.
Yeah, it never worked out.
Yeah.
They clearly didn't finish those books. They just got in the first couple of chapters.
Yeah,
it's like reading the beginning of Jurassic Park and being like, wow.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, no, it was just like, oh yeah, 3 laws of robotics. Bam, we're going to put that in law and it's going to be great. And it's like,
solved.
All right, let's go to lunch, boys.
Yeah, exactly.
And Amazon, now we've talked about this a lot, where on Amazon, this actually the case here. It's usually much worse than this. It's usually a totally different product, but they get a good product. They build up really positive reviews for it. Then they take a crappy product and they put it as a SKU of that same product, even though they might be totally different things, which in Amazon's world is like, sure, the reviews apply to both of those things. That makes perfect sense. There's no way they built that without knowing it would be abused.
FTC orders supplement maker to pay $600,000 in first case involving hijacked Amazon reviews.
You guys use any of these supplements or this brand? I've seen them at the store before.
I don't think so.
I gotta have the B12.
It wasn't, I take a lot of supplements, but it wasn't necessarily that their stuff was bad or it didn't work.
It was just false, yeah.
It's just that they made some that were reformulated and less popular. And so you might be thinking, well, that could be a clear mistake. Maybe just somebody who was filling out the Amazon data entry, didn't understand it or whatever. No, they got some internal emails.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they pretty much spelled it out. Hey, this one's not doing very well, but this one is. Let's go ahead and put those together. And it worked. And they talked about it working in the emails as well.
Yeah.
So
That's why
hopefully
you feel like you can't trust Amazon anymore. I don't like to order from there if I can help it.
Amazon has a strong economic incentive to help other people screw the customer.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's way stronger than $600,000.
Yeah.
Which is their penalty here.
Yeah.
So basically they're saying, keep doing it, but pay us $600,000 every year.
Yeah.
It's a slap on the wrist for them, probably.
There's so much in daily life that is got a perverse incentive like that. Like the Windows Start menu. It's like it is not in their best interest to let you customize the Windows Start menu to take all the crap out of it, because they will get less numbers on a spreadsheet to make them look good.
And most people don't care enough about that minor annoyance to stop using their product.
Right.
Just like Amazon.
Remember Amazon search? Like, remember when Amazon search used to not be awful, and now when you search for a product, it's like it's faster to go to Google to search for something on Amazon than it is to use Amazon's own search.
And Google search isn't very good either.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Google's gotten way worse.
We're going to have to daisy chain like 50 searches together eventually.
That's what AI is going to do. It's like, it's like,
Except AI is worse because you don't know where the source is half the time. You can ask for it, and then you look at the source, and it's like, that's not in here.
Your persona AI is you're a haggard personal assistant that's tired of the world, and you're going to have to search 17 different search engines to find the reasonable solution. Okay.
I mean, other than the personal assistant part, that's just me.
Yeah.
And we have talked about in the past how good these bad actors have gotten at getting the malware hardware so tiny and small and the payload so good that they can fit it into basically a regular USB cable. You wouldn't know the difference. And the FBI is just catching on to this, I guess.
FBI warns against using public phone charging stations because bad things will happen. Google was clued into this to the extent that one of the first companies that made cables that were physically wired for power only got an insanely large order actually from Alphabet for all of their employees. And it said, here, use these special charge cables that are charge only because we don't trust anything else. And that was 5 years ago.
How many years ago did we read this story about the little tiny piece of malware, or not malware, but you could fit on like the head of a pencil? It was so small.
Oh, that was on the board itself.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily be the thing here,
this,
but you could easily get it small enough. And we also, I mean, they could put it into the USB port itself, pop the one out that's there and replace it. It's not that hard to do. Or put like a little skimmer over top of it. And decentralized finance is, of course, only used by terrorists and other horrible organizations, because obviously the whole idea of uncentralized money is the antithesis of the system we currently live in, and they can't help but remind us that constantly.
The CoinDesk headline is U.S. Treasury warns DeFi is used by North Korea scammers to launder dirty money. But this is a really suspicious article because that has been true since day one. It's never been the case that North Korea wasn't using some form of cryptocurrency to launder money. That's why the timing of this is very suspicious.
I would like to see a comparison of how much cryptocurrency is used in money laundering and how much the US dollar is used in money laundering.
Or HSBC. Like, think about all the HSBC laundering, and it's like, well, we should shut down the entire banking industry or audit it more completely. And it's like, well, yeah, I would agree with that too. Let's audit the crap out of HSBC, all of their clients down to every little dollar. It's commercial, right?
How would you think the ratio is of, again, cryptocurrency money laundering going into bad hands versus U.S. foreign aid being laundered and going into bad hands?
I think that if you did it by number of transactions and you took out the transactions that were from or against accounts that were, with less than a balance of $1 million, that it would be a staggering percentage of transactions.
But they're warning against it. It's almost like they've got a competitor in the works.
Also, North Korea, did you guys see? Well, I think we talked about this, the missile that went over Japan. Do we have any Japanese viewers? Were you in Hokkaido?
Did this latest one go over Japan?
It landed in the ocean very nearby.
Yeah, they thought it was actually going to hit mainland Japan.
But they have shot one over Japan in the past.
Yeah, this one they thought for a brief moment that it was actually going to hit, and they told people to get to shelter.
We've also got more about, apparently North Korea is mad about something. The story didn't say what, but we'll talk about that. I think it'll be in the government section. That's right. And here is a rare bit of good news. I mean, it's not like we tried to avoid it. It's just that
it's hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, not a lot of it out there. But this one, so far I did not see any loopholes here. Did you?
No.
This one seems just purely good. Now, if you go in the comment section and tell us why it's terrible, we do need to know that, but I'll be sad.
Colorado approves first ever agricultural right to repair bill. It seems like the tractor companies were going for the jugular on this one in terms of, no, we don't need this because this is an interlock we have on the emissions control system. And if we just let anybody in there, these things could belch lots of really bad greenhouse gases. And this seemed to be their strongest argument against right to repair, but it was still passed in Colorado. And the couple of the lawmakers actually said, it's like, well, if a farmer isn't compliant with their emissions, they're still on the hook. But
there was a good quote in the article from one of the farmers there, that big block quote, but I can't remember the gist of it. You scrolled past it.
We could have a dozen pinky swears from a dozen tractor manufacturers, but it wouldn't be comprehensive repair materials. I'm running out of pinkies and I still can't fix my tractor. My darn tractor.
Yeah.
But
it's such a great tone. Like, it comes through in the writing.
They also point out that John Deere, for example, had been systematically buying up and consolidating all the repair shops.
Yeah.
So the actual small town guys who could still do this kind of stuff, they would just buy them out and make sure that they couldn't do anything John Deere didn't want them to do. And then that created massive backlogs for repair. And in farming,
you got a limited window to harvest.
A week is going to be the difference between ruin and success. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole emissions argument is just, it's such a disgusting thing that they use because John Deere does not care.
Yeah.
And they never will. Well, more and more, this is terrifying because week after week, we get more people who are planning this terrible thing. And again, I think it's just because they all have friends who are looking to start a business here. Because currently, this really doesn't exist in a way that is universal. And everybody's looking to get on that dollar, I think.
Arkansas House wants you to use ID or use your ID to use social media. You show an ID and then you can use social media. And it's like,
Be over 18, I think.
So there's a couple of ways you can do this, and two of them are existing companies that already do this for social media. And they claim that they're not going to keep your data or whatever, but we all know that's a lie.
Yeah.
Also, maybe this will keep you off the big social media sites, but then you'll just splinter down to
little ones.
Minecraft Discord servers.
Also, like, wouldn't you be setting your youth back like long term if they don't know how to use the internet?
Oh, I think
compared to every other country,
they are already set way back.
Right, but this would make it worse.
Remember when Club Penguin was a social media site?
You can make the argument that if we got the kids completely off of social media, they might be better off. But I don't see how you enforce that.
They'll probably replace it with something far worse.
They'd probably start huffing gas or something. Kids are so dumb. And that's why social media is dangerous. I'm going to admit that I don't have a good solution for that situation.
Yeah.
And you know what? They don't either. Well, Broadcom, they want to buy VMware. And you might think, well, hardware, software, okay, that makes sense. There's probably not a lot of competition there. But the EU says, oh, no, we've thought of a vector that you haven't.
EU says Broadcom's proposed VMware deal could restrict competition. Okay.
So it has to do with the hardware paywall. I don't remember the name of the thing. Do you?
It's because Broadcom is a pretty big name in networking hardware, and that can play a role in how networking hardware is virtualized.
And they might build hardware that would only work with their branded version of VMware and not other virtual machines, because obviously there's going to be an open source alternative immediately after this happens.
Yeah. Broadcom's problem is that more and more of the data center is depending on software-defined networking, which is moving a lot of functionality out of the network card. And so what do you do if you're a hardware company? It's like, you need better software. And it's like, well, who's one of the leaders in the software side of it? VMware. And Dell wants to unload VMware anyway, so win-win, right?
For them, perhaps.
And France just recently went after Google in a big way, and they made some harsh rules about several of the big tech companies. Of course, Apple has to be on the list.
France is eyeing antitrust action against Apple. Why? The App Store and app exclusivity.
The same old argument. And they know they're guilty. We all know they're guilty. So these are easy. These are slam dunk.
Are they just trying to get like a win in the press right now since there's still stuff going on in Paris?
They could certainly use one.
Yeah.
Oh, and was today the decision?
Yeah, the court
appeal?
upheld it, I think. So it's the retirement age has been up to 64.
They kept it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a spicy French weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. They reported that right after like 6 p.m. local time in France, because Friday after work is when you drop the bad news.
Yeah, but
then everyone's free all weekend.
Yeah,
They go
they got nothing to do tonight except
get angry. Yeah.
I saw they went after the Louis Vuitton building.
I saw that too. Yeah.
They don't really do anything though. They just break in and wave their flares around. I don't think that's going to change anybody's mind at Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, I just saw that right before we started. So yeah, I think that went through.
And in the UK, they are deciding to insert themselves more into your privacy, into your quiet time. Imagine if you were just like, oh, I'm going to take a nap. It's the weekend. I finally get to recharge my batteries. And this happens because you literally cannot escape it.
Time set for National Mobile Phone Emergency Alert Test. Everybody's going to get an emergency alert.
Even the people point out in this article, like if you are someone who is fleeing domestic violence or something like that, you might have a phone that you're like hiding so that you can get out. And that's also going to go off since there's no way to turn it off.
Or you might be married and you might have a girlfriend phone. Turn that off. Just leave that off all weekend. They also point out the reason there's a marathon picture here is that first they set a time and then some people were like, no, that's the soccer game. And they're like, all right, we'll change it. And they're like, no, that's the marathon. So they kept having to try to satisfy everybody. It's almost like people don't want this.
We get the golden alerts a lot.
I have been able to turn that off, I think.
Have you? I don't know how to do that because mine still goes off.
I hate them.
I got one of those right after like Russia invaded Ukraine. And it was literally like a week later. And I saw that pop up on my phone. I just heard the tone and was like, what just happened? But it was just a golden alert.
They say that the bar will be extremely high, that you won't get these unless really, really serious things are happening. But like you say, we get the golden alerts.
How long do you think they'll get one for Charles' coronation?
When the Queen died, do you think they would do that?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how it works over there.
Maybe that's what prompted all this. It's like, how will we send alerts to everybody to let them know?
Charles is the king now.
Well, this is something that has already happened to several of the major adult websites in the U.S. because they had that whole like revenge thing and unauthorized use of people's images and so forth. It's weird that it took this long for Amsterdam to catch up to this.
Amsterdam court, the popular site for adults must delete all amateur videos posted without consent. That kind of makes sense. Again, Amsterdam trying to clean up their image.
X-Hamster.
What a name.
Is it because it's in Amsterdam? I guess that makes sense. I don't understand why you would call a site like that X-Hamster.
It doesn't imply anything about the contents of the site.
And I feel like, you know, maybe a kid could be like, oh, I want to look at hamster pictures.
No.
When I was like 12, the first time I ever went to 4chan, I just heard it was like a place for funny like cat and dog pictures. And the first thread I clicked on, the first like 3 were cat and dog pictures, and the third was anime. But like bad anime. I was like, oh no, and I never went back.
Back in the day, like it could be cat and dog pictures, but it could be people killing them. There was some really nasty stuff on 4chan.
Yeah, I never went back after that. I was so scared.
And we have a bit of a blast from the past here because, wow, do you remember 2016? Remember when we thought we had all those problems in 2016? Now look at them in comparison.
They've really just snowballed.
Remember the Australian wildfires? That was such a huge deal.
Well, the election, I think, was the bigger story in 2016. And we had all of these accusations about who was trying to mess with it. Now they say they know.
The Reuters headline is Ukrainian hackers say that they have compromised the Russian spy who hacked Democrats in 2016. How do they know? They found some unreleased material and they're sharing it.
They were also able to correspond some of his stuff with like where he was on a given day. They did some decent sleuthing here, but it feels like that 4chan sleuthing, you know, where they always get the wrong person and then they go to their house or something like that. So I don't know how much we can trust this. Also, I don't know how much it matters because this guy's in Russia.
Yeah.
Maybe after things settle down. And here, this is an interesting contradiction in that they want to stamp out vaping in children, and at the same time, they're going to mail vapes to everybody.
UK launches a world-first scheme urging smokers to switch to vapes.
This article read to me that some lawmaker in the UK had a contact at a vape business, and then they were like, let's do this. Which, is vaping really that much better? I guess maybe it's better for public health because you're only poisoning your own lungs, but...
So there's a 3-pronged attack here. The Trident aims to help more adults quit smoking, stop children and non-smokers from taking up vaping, and using vaping as a tool for established adult smokers to quit. So they're telling us that vaping is a better alternative, but don't do it. It's a weird message there.
A little odd.
But yeah, they're going to target these smokers and send them some vape stuff and be like, hey. They also talk about the illicit vape market. What do you think that is exactly? What makes a vape illicit?
There are some that mix in other substances.
Like what?
Like there's weed vapes.
Oh, okay. All right. So they're saying illicit drugs with vapes?
Yeah. And some of them, I think, too, just aren't tested real well. So it's like, who knows what you're actually vaping?
And this was, the Australian, I don't know what ACCC is, but it's Australian something. And they are looking at, again, this is sort of just copy paste from one of our lawsuits because they know it's the way it is, and they know they can win.
ACCC boss wants new powers to crack down on online businesses to make it hard to cancel subscriptions.
They call out Amazon in particular in this article.
Competition and Consumer Commission. Yeah, in ours, the law just said we want you to be able to cancel the subscription as easy as you set it up, because there are some subscriptions that are a huge pain in the butt to set up. And so as long as it's as easy to cancel it, it's fine. Amazon is easy to cancel, or easy to create, hard to cancel.
Now, Europe has already done this with one of their data protection laws, you know, like whatever. And the Australians point out, and this is a really good case, it's 2 clicks in France, 4 clicks in Australia. Why would you make it different?
Can you imagine too, like being on the dev team and then getting that request, and it's like I have to do 2 different versions, and I have to manage them, and I have to bug test them,
and I have to look at your IP address and geocode your address, try to figure out where you're from, try to figure out if you're trying to get around this. Yeah, terrible. And China is kind of a little bit far behind in the AI situation, which I don't think they care for. They want to get in control of it, but here's the thing about the AI. All that information that it's good at giving people, they don't want their citizens to be seeing that. So what do?
China's Payment Association warns over the risks of using AI products like ChatGPT. It's like, we can't, the Great Firewall wasn't designed to filter this kind of technology. What do we do?
Yeah, wasn't there a quote in the article that was like, I can't remember what it was now. Something about like, it needs to support China and communism or something.
You're thinking of the next article, which is what the government ultimately has decided to do to try to deal with this threat.
China wants to require a security review of AI services before they're released, which is going to be a very long series of questions to make sure that the AI will answer those questions the way that they have prescribed.
There's a particular quote though. I can't remember. It was the context was literally just like,
it must not question authority.
Yeah.
It must be pro-socialism. And there was one other, I don't think they had bullet points.
No, it was just a quote from one of the guys they interviewed.
But yeah, so they're going to look at everything and make sure that it lines up with their demands. Yeah. I'm too lazy to pick up the keyboard and search for socialism. But, here we go. Not promoting terrorism. Reflect the core. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Reflect the core values of socialism and must not contain subversion of state power. That's a terrifying sentence. You needed the full sentence to get the effect.
Our leaders would love that.
Subversion of state power.
I would love to see somebody explaining the whole dragon's claws thing to the AI. It's like, oh, this is what the claws and the dragon represent, and then this is, the 5th clause.
Will Winnie the Pooh be banned from Midjourney in China? Can't generate images with Winnie the Pooh.
The Chinese are not going to have access to Midjourney. But they might have access to the moon, and they're looking to take some people with them. However, it seems like, because we have the Artemis program, and we've brought a lot of countries into the Artemis program, China wants to start their own parallel program to compete with Artemis. But they're having to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel to get people to join.
China invites Venezuela to join the moon base project.
Venezuela doesn't have a lot of money. They've got some Bitcoin.
Is this
get some raw materials?
Is this what China does though? Like, I mean, we kind of do the same thing. Where like you invest a lot in infrastructure just so you bring them into your fold. Maybe that's what they're doing with Venezuela.
That's their built-in road thing that they do. Like they'll loan you money to start like a port, let's say. We're building a state-of-the-art port. They know you're never going to be able to pay that money back. And in the contract, it's like, well, if you don't pay the money back, we own a part of the port and we bring our own people in. And we have our own police force. And basically it's little China on your port. We do what we want with it. And eventually it'll be a military base. And South Korea, once again, easy target for Google. This has already been settled in other places. Why not do it there?
South Korea fines Google $32 million for blocking games on a competing platform. Competing platform is not the Play Store.
It was one something, right? Oh.
We should really just register an account, keep it signed in.
Never. Never. We'll never do it.
Forum.level1text.com.
But yeah, there was some other app store, and it wasn't like Google said you can't do it, but what they were doing, they were giving big incentives to the game companies.
Yeah.
And they got caught with the internal emails and so forth. They definitely did it.
Surprising no one.
And North Korea, as you say, they've launched some missiles. They're rattling the saber, and they're also apparently really upset with their southern neighbors.
North Korea ignores South Korea's phone calls for a 4th day.
Leaving them on red.
Yo, Slim, I called you.
Slim.
I guess he writes him.
It's funny how they talk about every day, morning and night. They call each other up just to be like, yeah, what's going on? Things are still
You're not gonna throw a missile into the ocean today, right? And not warn anybody and cause Japanese people to have to go underground. Not gonna do that today, right?
I wonder what he's up to. Is it just that he's not getting enough attention?
I don't know.
Is he looking to join up with China?
Yeah, probably.
Trade some more stuff for food, possibly.
Maybe the spring harvest isn't looking promising.
Too hot. Yeah,
Disappointing.
Maybe.
Well, we got a new kind of spyware out there, and not the normal kind, the big, powerful, nation-state built kind. 0-day. Now, fortunately, this was for an older version. This was for the iPhone 14, and it's probably been patched by Apple. But when it was out there, you wouldn't have even known.
Mercenary spyware hacked iPhone victims with rogue calendar invites, researchers say. Microsoft and Citizen Lab have new reports out about Quad Dream, a little-known Israeli mercenary spyware provider.
Boy, they really do concentrate in Israel, don't they?
Rogue calendar invites.
So you never saw the calendar pop up. It suppressed itself. You never had to do anything. You didn't have to click. You never knew it happened. But if it did, they got you. They got a little map here for everybody who they've confirmed. Nobody in the U.S.
Interesting.
Watch out for that. I don't know how to tell you to deal with it. Actually, there's nothing for you to watch. If you get it, you'll never know. They are not revealing how you can tell if you have this because they want to keep that information because it's still out there.
They just ran the story to freak everybody out.
Fascinating. You know who has the employees and the employees that are smart enough to figure this out? Google and Apple. And you know what they're not doing? Anything.
They might have laid all of them off.
Yeah.
They're still available. You have to employ them. And DDoS attacks. It's interesting because when Internet of Things was the big hot thing going around, they focused on that. But now Internet of Things has kind of failed. It's kind of fallen. So, of course, you choose something else.
DDoS attacks shifting to VPS infrastructure for increased power. Like you can do your distributed denial of service not from hacked toasters, but by just spinning up a bunch of servers on virtual private server services and then spinning them down before they have a chance to know what happened.
Way more effective. Not as elegant, though.
No.
When the webcams were attacking you, there was an art to that.
Not knowing what appliance I could trust. Exciting.
And the supply chain attacks, we talk a lot about that. And the problem ultimately with all of that is that it's possible that you could get an account for something, get it trusted, use it for a long time, and then sell it. No one at this table would do that with an Overwatch account or explore the possibility. But it is possible, and people in the Play Store are doing it.
How much to infect Android phones via Google Play Store? How about 20K? So basically, you build up a little bit of trust with your app, and Google stops paying attention to it.
That's when you put the malware loader in there on an update. And all of a sudden, you've got a little bit of a time window before they find it to give out your malware loader. Plus, this can be an app that you're using that works well. Not a new install. It's like, oh, I've been playing Pixel Dungeon for years.
Oh, don't even speak that into being.
And somebody buys it, buys that account. Next thing you know, you got the malware. The can-do attitude. There's so many headlines you could do with this one.
Yeah.
Register didn't have the best one, but all the things on your car, they talk to each other, and that's on a bus called the CAN bus. And because we're putting more and more smart objects onto our cars, you got to think about the security implications.
Can-do attitude, how thieves steal cars using network bus. Well, you can interface with all the computers in the car. You can say, hey, there's a key in the ignition. It turns successfully. And all the stuff in the rest of the network will say, okay, sounds good. And then it turns the engine on.
And then you have a new car.
if you got a smart headlight on your car, this fella had a RAV4. As long as that can be removed, in his case, he had some sort of accident and it peeled back the quarter panel, which gave them access. But they could probably pop it out if they had enough time in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And there's probably a better avenue to get to that we just haven't thought of yet.
There are some vehicles that have a wiring harness. Like you just lay under the car and move a little metal panel and then you just plug right in right there.
So once they can get to that, they can attack all the other stuff in the car because it's all on that network bus.
Isn't this also how the untraceable, the brakes failed hack worked? It's like, oh, this would be great for the intelligence service to murder somebody, and then
It's a wild card.
And then the next week it was like, whoa, that famous person died in a car that had that problem. That's weird.
Yeah, that'd be a great thing to do. Why did you just give them the idea?
I'm pretty sure they were already doing that years ago.
Well, when it comes to corporate espionage, perhaps the most exciting kind is the simulated kind, right? Because here's an economy. How many years has this been around?
More than 10.
The people who play this seem like they're super into it.
Yeah, and to the point where they create like laws. There's a system of rules. Somehow this was allowed, I guess. I got the impression that they're not going to undo this.
Yeah.
Like this is just part of the game, which is great. That's such emergent gameplay, right?
EVE Online player uses obscure rule to pull off the biggest heist in the game's history. It's about $22,000 US or 2.2 trillion ISK, the in-game currency. Fun times.
So here's what you do. The one guy led a rival company. I guess he was the CEO. That's what they call it there, right? So he creates an alt account, which I guess is allowed because they want to sell as many accounts as they can, right? Him and his buddy, they both create alt accounts and they spend a long time working their way up from the bottom to get a little bit of trust in this other organization. Then they use some obscure rule while everybody's asleep to call a vote for the CEO, but nobody shows up to it because
it's middle of the night or
it
something,
wasn't planned. They both vote for him to be the CEO, but his other account, the real account. So now the rival is the CEO of the other corporation and he transfers all the assets to his company. And the whole thing is just done in a moment.
Wow. That's real scummy, but
it's a fun thing to happen in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you would have the wrath of an entire guild on you or whatever they call it.
But how much fun is that? Because now you've got this blood feud between like a bunch of Ronins and the Empire.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
And they got all kinds of press and people are like, yeah, I'm going to go back to my old EVE account. This is going to be interesting.
I wonder how many but subscription, right? How many resubscribes and new subscriptions do you think this generated?
Too many.
Probably a decent amount.
I don't know. I guess if I was hit by it and I hadn't played in a while, I'd probably be like, well, I don't want to go back, so I have to regrind all that stuff.
I think it was one of the really big corporations, though. They probably won't even let you not participate. It's probably like, no, you got to show up. You got to do your mining for the week.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we talked about the supply chain attacks. It's a real problem. It's getting worse and worse. Google claimed that they had a solution, and everybody was like, all right, where is it, Google? Well, it's finally here.
Google's free assured open source software service hits general availability. This is open source software that's been vetted for security issues. And it's like, hey, you can trust this. Hey, you can trust that the supply chain for this has not been co-opted.
Now, they claim they're not going to fork anything. This is going to be the real stuff, but they're going to constantly monitor it and tell you if anything bad happens. I don't know if they'll be good enough to catch that. Be interesting to see if they are.
Yeah. Subscribe to Wired.
Wired. Oh, yeah. So this is about, obviously, China and now Russia, very, very picky about what they let their people see in terms of the internet. How do you get around it? Well, more and more, Russia has cracked down on every major VPN provider. So now there's a new solution.
The open source VPN service to get around Russian censorship, isn't that supposed to be Tor? No, it's Amnezia, but it's spelled wrong.
It's with a Z.
Classic.
And what does Amnesia do? It allows you to spin up your own version of the VPN somewhere, anywhere you can get hosting, you set it up, and they don't have any centralized visibility into what you're doing. So even if Amnezia gets raided by the government, you're not necessarily going to get caught, which is interesting, but it also requires you to have hosting somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, that's probably going to be difficult with most of the hosting companies in the Western world because you have a Russian address.
Are you going to use your Linode coupon for $5 more? And it's like, no.
What a great campaign that would be if one of these hosting companies was like, if you can prove you're in Russia, we'll give you like a basic level tier for your VPN service for free.
Would that be a good campaign?
Yeah, because we're like, we want to get information into Russia. Maybe some people
you'd have to spin it right, I think, to make that.
The problem is most people, they think of it as like Russia as like the people versus the people of Ukraine, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm sure some of them are like that, but you know,
a lot of them probably like, I just want to be left alone and live my life, and I don't agree with what my government's doing.
If you're not an American, like we have to be, very sensitive about that because, our government's really warmongering and we don't want that.
No one wants that.
That's wasting our money.
Also lives.
And finally, a real security faux pas. And I imagine this has happened probably hundreds of thousands of times already because it's such an easy thing to do.
Samsung software engineers busted for pasting proprietary code into ChatGPT. What I'm even more impressed by is that Samsung has enough software on their computers to be able to see what their employees are pasting into ChatGPT. Like that's actually kind of hard to do. That's sort of legit impressive. They can do that with their infrastructure. Most American companies can't do that because they're too lazy to set that up.
Will ChatGPT give you a control account where you can see what all the accounts are doing?
I thought that had to have been the case here, but I couldn't find any evidence to back that up.
I bet that's what it is. They probably like, oh, we're paying for ChatGPT. Let's do a quick search and see what everybody's using it for.
And then be horrified quietly.
Well, I think they were loud about it. They had a right to be.
I've heard of people, I think it was like on one of the legal subreddits, someone was like, can I post whatever, like details about a client's account into ChatGPT to help do my paperwork? And people were like, no, don't do that.
Because it learns.
Yeah.
And especially if you've got keys in there, SSH keys or something like that, or, like secret IDs or whatever.
It'll spit right back out.
And the problem is, next time somebody asks that question, it's like, I know the answer to that. And then they give you Samsung's SSH keys.
Oops.
So watch out for that. Watch what you tell the AI. They're
always listening.
It's not just you and that robot talking. There's more eyes behind that. More eyes and ears.
The robot's a gossip.
So many. So many eyes and ears.
We will see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.